Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coming to you today from glorious Impala Films headquarters in sunny Southend-on-Sea. It is another episode of Second Take Cinema. I'm your host, as always, Jamie Evans from Impala Films, and joining me, also as always, it's Rory Jocelyn from Cyberpunk Studios.
Hello, everybody.
I am thrilled to be able to bring you today's episode because today's episode we are looking at a film that I first saw 10, 11, 12 maybe years ago. When I was at university. It is a little known gem. In fact, I've never met anyone else who's ever seen it.
I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, the only people I know who've even heard of it are people I've shown it to. But I love this film. It's so funny. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about 2011's Detention. Detention is, as I say, a 2011 film. It is directed by Joseph Kahn, who is a South Korean/American film and music video director, having worked with various artists, including Britney Spears, T-Swizzle, Taylor Swift, Eminem, the Backstreet Boys, Lady Gaga, Snoop Dogg, Chris Brown, Kelly Clarkson, Ava Max, Mariah Carey, and Destiny's Child. So that's quite a who's who. His directorial debut was a film that did not do well, called Talk. I don't know if you...
Talk is in engine speed or talk is in verbal?
Talk is in engine speed. Torque.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you've ever seen. It is a biker movie, I believe.
I've not seen Talk.
Let's have a quick look at what Talk is then. It stars Adam Scott, Ice Cube, Jamie Presley. What's it about? It tells the story of biker Carrie Ford and how he discovers some motorcycle. Oh god, this sounds awful. The film tells the story of biker Carrie Ford and how he discovers some motorcycles filled with crystal meth. He stows them away, but it turns out that villainous gangster Henry James has plans to recover his drugs. James frames Ford for the murder of Junior, the brother of Trey, who heads the Reapers, a notoriously malicious biker gang. Ford goes on the run in an attempt to clear his name, while the FBI and multiple groups of motorcycle-mounted marauders chase after him.
I like the sound of this film.
So that was his directorial debut. He then did...
Sounds different.
Yeah, he then did Detention, and then in 2015, this is the one I didn't know, do you know they did a Power Rangers film, a live-action one, recently?
Oh, yeah, it was a reboot, wasn't it?
And it was garbage, yeah. But you know that what inspired them to do that was a short on YouTube that was incredibly well received.
Yeah, it had, what's her name, who played, she's in The Mandalorian, and she was in Battlestar Galactica in it. She was the Pink Ranger.
Katie Sackhoff.
That's it, yeah.
Yep, he directed that.
Wow, that was actually quite good. It's been removed from YouTube.
Yeah.
I wish I could get a copy somehow.
He directed...
That was actually really quite fun.
He directed
I don't think it would have made a
short.
good movie, though, because it was quite grotesque for a Power Rangers.
He directed the short, and then when they picked up the feature, didn't bring him back.
No.
Because
to be fair, that short felt very similar in vibe to Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat Legacy had a short film made first.
Yeah.
By the same director, Kevin Tankeri, and he did come back for Mortal Kombat Legacy. But that was a lot grittier in places, because it was like, for example, Baraka was a black guy who had done like loads of plastic surgery on himself, rather than being an actual Tarkatan from another world. And Reptile was in it, and he was a person with. There's a particular rare. It's a real disorder, a rare disorder where your skin turns like crystal.
Yeah, I know the one you mean, and I can't think what it's called.
Yeah. But he had that disorder, and it was like most people that are born with this generally die before the age of 8. But he's lived to like 30 odd, and he eats people. And it was a really dark, sort of gritty slice of life take on Mortal Kombat, which is a weird idea. And off that, he got the Mortal Kombat Legacy series. But the thing is, that original short was very much like the Power Rangers short that you mentioned from this guy. It seemed like much grittier slice of life. People get murdered indiscriminately left, right, and centre in a really gory fashion.
Yeah.
It was like a proper, like, let's do this, but let's do Power Rangers but 18.
Yeah.
And it was taken up to 11, which is why I think Mortal Kombat Legacy was meant to be leading up to a cinematic movie by Kevin Tenkerian that never happened. And I think that's basically what happened with this guy. He made that to get a film made under his name. And because they were like, well, it's too gritty though, so we'll get rid of him and we'll just do the movie with someone else. It's like, then why did you do it? Like, if you don't trust the director, like,
they're saying that's too gritty, but then as I've already told you, that Power Rangers movie starts with the Red Ranger jacking off a bull.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's not gritty. That's just stupid.
I agree. So his last film that he's done was in 2017, and you know what? I might have to see this, because tell me this doesn't sound stupid.
So all this guy's movies sound stupid.
This thing, so this, I'm going to tell you in a minute what it's about, but reading its reception, it's got 89% on Rotten Tomatoes.
The Wild Hogs had 11. So
it's described as having thorny themes and aggressive humour. It dares to offend and then justifies its approach with subversive comedy that edifies as it entertains.
That just sounds like torture porn with some dark comedy thrown in.
And an interview from RogerEbert.com said that the film offered an entertaining window into a culture that most people probably know very little about, but it's also a clever take on a generation more aware of what's offensive and what's not than any before. So that's a lot of high praise.
Yeah.
But listen to how... if you just got told this, the film would sound so... It's a YouTube original.
Oh, that's not a good start.
Produced by Eminem.
Well, to be fair, 8 Miles.
And its genre is a battle rap comedy.
I'm out.
Right, it's called Bodied.
Oh, I've vaguely heard of Bodied.
Yeah, and apparently it's really good.
Is it actually good, though, or is it just because it's got Eminem in it?
No, he's not in it, he produced it.
Oh, okay.
Production companies, YouTube Premium and Shady Films. Chicka Slim Shady. I might have to watch that. I do think it's a travesty this guy hasn't directed more.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I mean, this film we're about to discuss, Detention, which we've managed to evade for about 5 minutes. This film, I'll say this before we get into the depth of it. It is not a generic film. It has generic flavors where it's of the genres it's pastiching. So like it starts off, it's got the slasher film element that goes throughout the narrative, but it's not a generic slasher. It's a lot of that is to do with how it's mocking slasher films. But then the other side is it comes in with some really clever sort of... It's almost three-dimensional thinking.
Yeah.
When it, like... spoiler alert. When time travel comes into it and they figure out the time travel and how that all loops back round to the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
It's actually quite well done.
Yeah.
And you're like, that slasher? But what?
It definitely... I would feel pretty confident saying that this is a rare example of a film where I don't think the producers or the studio interfered at all. I feel like
that'd be a safe bet.
Yeah, I think this is Joseph Kahn's full vision.
Yeah, and actually, to be honest, I'm glad it is, because I can imagine how they could have sanitized it.
Yeah. So, this film stars Josh Hutcherson, Shane Lee Caswell, Spencer Locke, and Dane Cook. Now, I have a budget, but I unfortunately don't have a box office. I don't think it did earn a lot.
Maybe it didn't come out in cinemas. Maybe it only came out on straight to video.
So, its budget was $10 million, which, by 2011 standards, is nothing.
No.
Now,
and it has a lot of visual effects, and unfortunately, by the end, they get a bit ropey, probably because of the smaller budget.
Yeah, I think you're right. So it says here The film was released to select theaters in the US on April 13th, 2012 by Samuel Goldwyn Films, followed by a Canadian release on April 27th. It was then released on DVD and Blu-ray July 31st, 2012. So
It seems like it's quite an indie venture.
I think it only got cinema release in America and Canada, and even then only in select theatres.
Yeah, certainly America, it's mentioned limited or select theatres.
Yeah, and I think worldwide it just went straight to DVD.
Which makes sense for the type of film it is, to be honest.
I don't know how you'd even begin to market this film.
No, it's because if you market it as just a slasher, I think people that are after a straightforward slasher would be disappointed or confused. If you marketed it as a comedy, people would get confused because it's not an all-out comedy.
No, if you did it as like a slasher parody, people would think it's just Scary Movie again.
Yeah, and Scary Movie was 10 years old by that point, so people were like, well, it's been done. It's very difficult to market. I mean, I'm not a marketing executive. It's not my skill set. But usually with a film, you can see, the buzzwords at least. Jurassic Park, dinosaurs, 3D epic, special effects, Dino Carnage, whatever the hell, you've got things in there that you can just throw out as a buzzword. Detention doesn't really have them. Not ones that stick throughout the whole film anyway. No. Again, the slasher element comes in and out of it, but then there's a bit where a bloke is part fly.
Yeah.
And you're like,
why?
Yeah, and it's never explained.
No, ever. So, just before we get on to the actual plot, here's a few of the critical feedback. One critic described it, and I think he's right here. It's Scream meets Scott Pilgrim with a dash or two of Kaboom. Now, Kaboom I haven't shown you yet. I'm 100% going to show you Kaboom at some point.
Okay.
But I've told you about Kaboom. It's the LGBT film about a young man coming to terms with the fact he's gay at uni, and he's got a crush on his flatmate.
Oh, okay.
But then it turns into a horror film where a weird cult that wear Animal Farm masks are stalking him. And then at the end, the leader of the cult presses a big red button and the whole of planet Earth explodes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's why the film's called Kaboom. Anyway.
Is it not called Kaboom?
No.
Okay.
So on Rotten Tomatoes, it has an approval rating of 42%. With a weighted average of 5.10 out of 10. Consensus states director Joseph Kahn's relentlessly kinetic style gives Detention a rebellious kick, but the overload of ideas keeps this genre mashup from ever cohering into a satisfying whole.
You're a satisfying whole.
Justine Elias from Slant Magazine gave it 3 out of 4, saying, for gorehounds lured in by the poster and trailer, Detention is disappointingly ungory, but for pop culture pilgrims intent on discovering an underground prize, look no further. Brett Gorman from Oh the Horror, which is a great name for a magazine, Oh the Horror, gave the film a positive review, saying, smart, funny, and equally full of splatstick, violence, and heart.
Splatstick.
I love the term splatstick.
That's a good term.
Yeah, it gets
I've never
used...
heard it before. But
it gets used in horror comedy a lot, splatstick.
Makes sense.
Evil Dead gets described as it a lot.
Yeah, I think that would classify.
Detention isn't just next level horror, it's next level everything. A senses-altering reaffirmation of cinema. Fucking hell. I mean, I really like this film, but that's a bit of a snotty way to...
Yeah, it's trying to make it sound poncy, and it's really not a poncy film. It's
reaffirmation of cinema.
Yeah. So explain how you first came across this film, and basically why you've brought it up today.
So, I was at uni from 2010 to 2013, and I did a module on my film studies course called Horror and Fantasy.
Can I just add something here? You were at uni when?
Between 2010 and 2013.
Oh, God.
What?
I went to university.
You're only 5 years older than me.
2004, I started university.
I was in year 8.
When I went to uni.
But we've said this before on VGMP, haven't we? Now that we're both grown-ups, a 5-year age gap is nothing.
Yeah, but we're both in our 30s. 5 years, yeah.
Yeah, but when you're teenagers, it makes a huge difference. Because you would... I mean, I was probably still playing fucking Pokemon or some shit.
Yeah.
And you'd have like... Well, actually, no, you never grew up, did you? So
boy.
You know, let's be honest. Don't say that. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life. Don't stop it.
Go boom, 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 boom.
I literally just threw up in my mouth. I could taste vomit.
Well, that happens in this film a couple of times. Doesn't it?
Anyway, so I did this horror and fantasy module, and the lecturer for this module looked. You would never look at this guy and guess he was a film lecturer. He looked more like a rugby player. Like he was a short built, very broad shouldered guy with looked like his nose had been broken 3 or 4 times, with the thickest Glaswegian accent you have ever heard. He literally started our first lesson by walking in to a room full of most of the people there didn't know about horror and fantasy. It's why they were taking the course, was to learn about it. And he literally just walked in and went, "Morning, everybody. Who here likes torture porn?" Like that.
Torture porn.
Torture porn. And literally 3 girls got up and walked out. Because they obviously didn't know that torture porn is a subgenre of horror.
Yeah, they thought it was actual porn.
Yeah.
You should always ask for consent, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, you should. Let's be clear on that.
Yeah. The joke is on the genre name.
I know.
Not take the piss out of consent.
No.
Holy damn, I
anyway,
almost got myself cancelled.
Yeah. Anyway, he came in one day and he said to us that he'd just seen this movie called Detention, and he wasn't going to tell us anything about it because you can't explain detention.
You really can't.
No. Instead, he showed us the very first scene with the girl who wakes up in bed and she's like, I'm a bitch, or no, life's a bitch, or something like that. No,
she's a bitch. I'm a bitch, which stands for beautiful...
Beauty, intelligence, talented, charisma, hooberstank.
Yeah.
What? They're good. See, that's one thing that's aged about the film, because who the fuck remembers hooberstank?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Though, to be fair, the film the film sets itself in 2011, so it's going to age as time goes on, because it's set in 2011. It's probably a smart move, because schools change and fashions, etc. change all the time. Yeah. One of the things it does quite smartly, though, is even for 2011, it outdates itself, because it has a lot of elements, and we'll come to this further in the narrative as well, but even in the 2011 sections of this film, it's very much fueled by 90s fashion, nostalgia, and music.
Yeah. I really feel... but basically, to just finish that story,
sure.
He showed us the beginning and was like, "I'm not telling you anything else about this film, but you need to see it." And loads of us went and watched it. And actually, it getting a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, that actually sounds about right. Because some of us came back to the class the next week and were like, "This is the greatest movie ever." And then some of them come back and was like, "That was awful," and I turned it off.
Yep.
I was in the first camp. Throughout uni, I immediately started a quest to show this film to everyone I knew. I showed it to my brother and sister when I went home that summer. I showed it to all my housemates. People used to just come to the house. Like, we had Jehovah's Witnesses knock on the door once and was like, "Can we talk to you about Jesus?" I was like, "Can I talk to you about detention?"
And did they say yes?
No, of course they didn't.
I've scared Jehovah's Witnesses off before. I gave a couple an existential crisis once.
Oh, God.
They asked me about, do I believe in evolution? Because they were trying a new method.
And you asked, what, you mean the David Duchovny science fiction movie?
No, I said, "Oh, yes, I do." And they went, "Why?" I said, "Because it's provable." And they went, "Oh, but have you thought there's another way?" And I was like, "Oh, you mean creationism?" They're like, yeah, that's what we want. Yeah.
Is it provable?
I was like, the thing is, I think both can coexist. And then, what? I think both can be equally true. And I'm like, well, how? No, that's not possible, is it? I was like, well, yeah, because in the Bible, it states that God created the world in 7 days. Well, 6 days, and he rested on the 7th. Yes, that's right. I was like, yeah. The thing is, the Bible was written by men to channel the words of God. God states that it took that many days, But a day, as far as we're concerned, is one revolution of the Earth on its axis, because that's our understanding of a daily cycle, or a single cycle of a planetary body. But for God, he wouldn't just be in charge of our planet, he would be presumably God of the entire universe. So a day for God would either be a rotation of the entire galaxy on its axis, or perhaps the entire universe. So for him to take 6 days to build the world probably adds up, because each rotation of the entire universe would take several million or billion years. Yeah, millions or billions of years each. Plus, he does that 6 times, you get the creation of the Earth and everything on it. And they're like, oh, and also, have you noticed that God doesn't really speak to people anymore?
Because he's on the seventh day
and he's resting. And they went, yes, well, we've got to go. I was like, why? We're having a conversation. And they left.
It's like the episode of Black Books when Dylan Moran, Bernard Black, that's it. Have you seen Black Books?
Yes, I've got the whole series.
When they come to the door and he's desperate to not do his taxes. Yeah. So he's like, yes, come in. And then they don't know what to talk about because they're like, well, no one ever usually invites us in. Anyway, so I saw the film.
Yep.
And I loved it. As always, spoilers past this part. Although I don't really think you could spoil Detention, because everything you can say about it
would remove the shock of it, is all it would do, I think, because I'm still not 100% I get it.
No, but even then, Rory, I've seen it about 50 times, I don't think I get it. But even then, I've told you everything that happens in that film. I've told you about the flyboy and the TV hand.
Yes,
I told you about the time-travelling bear from Planet Starclaw.
Yep.
And yet, even then, still watching it, every time these things happened, you were like, what? I think it's a spoiler-proof movie.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't tell me about the bit where the man who turns into Flyboy, after he becomes Flyboy, by touching some alien egg thing, he has to walk around for several years with a television on his hand.
I definitely did, because I remember telling you that they all chant TV hand at him.
Oh, yeah, you did.
TV hand, TV hand.
And then afterwards, magically, after wearing the TV for several years, his hand is healed?
Yeah. Yeah, I know
There's
how.
no explanation for that whatsoever.
There's no explanation for this film. One of those reviews we just read described it as kinetic.
Yeah.
And that is 100% a word I would use for this, because this film, right from its opening credits, which, by the way, might be my favourite opening credit sequence of all time.
It's very well done. Because before we put this on, you said that this film was probably very low budget. There was a couple of things that gave away the fact that it didn't have the highest of budgets. But the only real main giveaway, other than some ropey CGI towards the end,
let's be honest, some very ropey CGI. Some sci-fi original movie level.
Yeah. Not quite Video Game Earth Force level, though. No. Still above that. But there's... so the only real main giveaway at the start is the fact that where they didn't have control of exterior light, it's clearly a real location they used, not a set. Yeah. And where they didn't have control of the exterior light, it kind of usually got overblown. And there was a couple of times you could tell that it's the wrong time of day for when they should be in class.
Yeah,
when it actually didn't matter aesthetically, it looked nice.
Oh, it looked lovely, yeah. When they were in the canteen, it's clearly evening, because you've got that kind of warm orange glow that you only get when the sun's on its way down.
Yeah.
You could see through the windows, you can see how low in the sky the sun is.
Yeah.
And they're on their lunch break at school.
Yeah.
But it looks gorgeous, yeah.
But most of the time the windows are overblown, like the white levels are blown out because they haven't got that much control over the lighting, and clearly they've had to shoot quite quickly. They couldn't, wait for light to control or put up massive boards to block out the light, which, fine. I'm not going to slate the film on that front. It's just that it was kind of the only real giveaway until the ropey CGI at the end that this didn't have a big budget.
Yeah.
Because this intro sequence, honestly, big budget films aren't this smart. They've had pieces of costume and set design and things like that. Some of it was CGI, but the vast majority of it was actual practical props that they'd had littered around the set with the names of cast and crew members with their actual job titles and stuff on them. There's like one where it's like a varsity jacket.
It's stitched on.
And it was stitched on.
And that person has to walk past the camera at exactly the right moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's probably some trickery going on to trick the long unbroken shot view. but actually it's very well done.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things that I didn't expect is when you said it was kind of low budget and you didn't know what to think of it. I expected it to be a lot more ropey than it is.
Yeah.
But actually, it's very slick. There are a lot of scene transitions, a lot of effects outside of the ropey CGI tend to be very well done.
Yeah.
And it's only ropey outside of the CGI. I will always put that as the caveat on it. But other than this ropey CGI, like the bits where you can see like TV boy has his hand in the TV and it's clearly cut out around his wrist.
Yeah.
That's where it's just like, we don't give a shit. Enjoy yourself. It's stupid.
Yeah.
You know, and they're in on the joke. I have a lot of praise for that. Like there was the set, whoever was dealing with set did a bloody good job. Yeah. And the director clearly had a strong vision and storyboarded the hell out of it. Even though this film is mental, this film, it at least wasn't in the same vein as something like Easy Rider or Burst City or anything like that where you had a director and a crew who are off their tits on drugs. Because it could have easily been. It could, like, thematically, you'd be like, this guy must have been off his nut on drugs. And maybe he was when he wrote it. But when it comes to production design, it is flawless.
Yeah, you can tell because the way it's shot. Because the thing with... I've seen films where the people making it are on drugs, and they tend to be very slow.
Yeah,
because they're lazy, they don't want to move the camera. This camera never fucking stops moving.
It's very, but it's always considered. It's not, you're not sitting there going, stop the fucking camera for Christ's sake. You know, it's always well considered motion.
Yeah, there were some points where I wouldn't say it was necessary. You could have done so. For example, I'm thinking in particular of the scene where Josh Hutcherson and Dane Cook are in the principal's office when he does the "you may not have a skittle" bit. Yeah. You could have done that whole scene, one master over the shoulder, but they don't.
No.
They have zooms, they've got bits where the camera changes angle for no reason except it just keeps you engaged.
Yeah. It doesn't get boring.
Oh, no, at all. Like I said, I've seen that film about 50 times
it never
now.
Drags. There's not a single shot in this, I think, where I was like, come on, when we get to the next.
Yeah, because it never fucking stops.
If anything,
every time you think you... Like
but
said...
It never feels like it's too fast. You never sit there going, fucking slow the film down, mate.
Yeah.
It always feels like it's going at... Even though it's fast, at the right pace.
Yeah, I honestly think that the people who don't like this film I think it is... You have to have a certain personality type to like it.
The word I'm thinking of for this is kitsch. Because people have stated that my film tastes of kitsch. I actually like this film. Yeah. I've never seen it before. It's stupid, it's mental, it's weird, but it's very well made.
Yeah.
With the budget that they had... And I have a lot of time for it. I'm like, you know, as weird as it is, you have to be willing to get into a very strange headspace. Once you can get yourself in that headspace, you will enjoy yourself.
You have to be, much like, it's very similar to the Evil Dead films, I feel, which is you have to be able to get into a mindset of, okay, this thing is just going to keep piling things on, and I am along for the ride, and nothing is too far.
Yeah.
Whereas, because you get, what? I'd say 80% of the way through the film before it suddenly goes, oh, by the way, there's time travel in this movie.
No, this is the thing. Like, most of the elements in this are not set up early.
No, and I can imagine I literally know people who that would happen. They'd be like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I was watching a slasher film. Why is there time travel? What's this bear going into a spaceship for? Like, it sounds like, just saying it now, it sounds ridiculous.
It's the little titles that come up as well. What is it? It's something like The Ballad of the Bear from Planet Starclaw or something.
Yeah, and like it's because when it jumps to different scenes, it'll have like an intro card that'll tell you what that card is. It's almost episodic.
Yeah,
but the film actually films filmic. It does it doesn't break up in a way where you go, oh well, that's clearly they've cobbled it together out of parts.
Literally 15 minutes from the end, it gets revealed that this film has a Freaky Friday style mother-daughter body swap that is never explained how it happens. Just aliens.
Yeah,
aliens turn up. But how did them? Because the mum plans for it to happen. The aliens
picked up the bear from Starclaw.
Yeah.
Or did they?
They picked up the bear from Starclaw, and then they come and do the body swap with Ione and Sloane as well.
But they also weren't they the ones that dropped off the egg thing that turned the guy into half fly?
We assume so, but we don't know. You don't see the UFO. You see that looks more like a meteorite that's just landed.
Canadians, aren't they?
Yeah, because
The
at the
aliens
end,
are Canadians at the end.
yeah, which to be fair, did you notice that is set up right near the beginning when there's the news report about the slasher?
Yeah.
The next news report, just before it cuts away, is a man's been seeing UFOs in the sky over town.
Right.
And it cuts away, and then that's the Canadian aliens.
Nice.
Oh yeah, Canadians are aliens, by the way.
Yeah. There's a Canadian in this who dies and then is revealed to be a Canadian alien later. Who,
Oh yeah,
after
he
he's revived.
dies. Oh, because they go back in time and
Yeah, go
undo
back in
that.
time and they fix it. So, but yet somehow the guy's still failing his grades, even though everything else has changed. It's
American restaurants serve popcorn chicken because they want Americans to be fully certain that chicken was pulverized.
So let's talk about some of the characters. So we've talked about some of the weird events. The main character in this
is Riley.
Is Riley, and she is a pastiche of activist, I suppose, like unliked activist, like in the school, because she's a vegetarian and she's made a
vegetarian who very easily caves on her vegetarianism after losing one debate.
Yes, but it's still bangs on about it. Like her debate was all about, and I'm pretty certain she does a lot of her schoolwork on how animals feel this, that, and the other. But she's also a pescatarian, isn't she?
Yeah,
because the Canadian has to go
can't
about
feel
that.
pain. Yeah,
which is
I
not
feel
true.
like she's a pastiche of, or a send up of a certain type of character that features very heavily in a lot of indie movies, which is that sort of edgy teenager where being depressed is cool, and they're really it's almost Daria-esque.
Yes,
where it's very sarcastic.
But she's even wearing a t-shirt. This is what a feminist looks like.
And there's a bit where she's going to hang herself.
Yeah.
And she's doing it super matter-of-factly. Well, to be honest, her beginning bit sums her up perfectly. She's in bed. She wakes up, lifts her hand up, and her hand's covered in red. She's like, oh, for fuck's sake. And obviously you think, oh shit, she's got a period. Opens her covers. She's fucking French fries and ketchup.
Yep.
Then she does her monologue about...
She eats one of the French fries as well.
Yeah. Then she's doing her monologue about how she's only the second saddest person in school history. The first one was the one who blew the school mascot in 1992, which turns out to be her when she goes back in time. And she pops all those pills, don't she? Because I was going to say, I think... No, let me finish this point and then I'll do my next point. She says, she's looking straight at the camera and she says something like, something about 90s nostalgia and goes, but the 90s are over and so am I. And she necks all these pills and it's like this edgy sort of, oh, depression's cool. And then a song comes on the radio. She just spits all the pills out. It's like, I love this song. And for me, it's that perfect parody of, and I was like this when I was a teenager. You think you're a lot deeper than you actually are.
Yeah.
But actually you're just an excitable kid. And fucking all it takes is a song coming on the radio to be like, oh, fuck depression.
Yeah, the world's a better place all of a sudden.
What I was going to say was 90s nostalgia is very in right now.
Yeah, but it wasn't necessarily in 2011.
No, I feel like this is one of the forerunners of that. Like, the 90s were not that long ago in 2011.
Yeah. Well,
really.
I remember towards early to late 2000s, 80s was back in, but that actually lasted a while.
Yeah.
Because I remember they used
Stranger Things is still 80s nostalgia, isn't it?
Yeah. But the thing is that, I mean, the thing, people look at Stranger Things and be like, that's quite recent, there's still 80s nostalgia. Yes, there is. But there was an 80s nostalgia nightclub in Southend, just out next to the university. And it used to be called Reflex. Yeah. And I went there while I was still in uni. That was...
I wish that was still here. I would go... I love 80s music.
Yeah, you'd go there and they'd always play Ghostbusters and... But no, there's... But I suppose maybe the idea was that they thought the 90s would replace the 80s by this point, because the 80s had already been around for about 10 years in terms of revival. But actually, they didn't realise how much staying power the 80s had. Yeah. And 90s has started to come in again now, but it's only really been the last 5 years. So, this was a kind of a precursor to that. I think they jumped the gun, but I'm glad they did, because it makes it strangely more current than it should be for a 2011 movie.
I know.
Isn't it weird as well? This is a stupid slasher comedy sort of not sci-fi weird-ass movie from 2011. And on our VGMP channel, we watched a 2013 film called Noobs, which was... not a slasher, but it was another comedy film that was attempting to cash in on a retro zeitgeist, but for the younger audience.
Yeah.
Now, Noobs is terrible. It's a garbage movie through and through. Like, I'm not comparing the two on quality at all. Even the filmmaking doesn't even match.
We've got one film where the camera never stops moving and one where it never moved.
No, Noobs did not have a single moving camera shot. But so yeah, filmmaking wise, like just in terms of technical side, this is a better film anyway. But what I was saying was, Noobs is 2 years younger than this film, but has aged a hell of a lot more, even with its kind of retro-inspired themes, because of the types of jokes it was telling. This, like, the Noobs was through and through full of gay panic. Like, there's a whole character in there that is a main character, and he's literally from start to finish, oh, he's gay, oh, gay, oh, you're gay, oh, we know you're gay.
His name's Fraggot.
Yeah, exactly. Everything about this character is gay panic. And yet, this is 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
It's still basing itself on 90s sort of nostalgia. I don't remember there being a gay panic joke in it.
No.
And, in fact, the jokes still hold up now. There's a couple of Vom jokes that don't do it for me. But other than that, because I don't like gross out.
Yeah.
But other than that, pretty much every joke in this film still holds up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did they do that 2 years before?
Yeah.
And obviously one is because one is written and directed by someone who knows what the fuck they're doing, and the other is garbage. As it is, because it was on VGMP. So, it's a video game and culture movie, of course.
We've done
it's
a
garbage.
couple good ones on VGMP,
That's true. That never a culture one yet, I don't think.
But, so other characters you've got, Josh Hutcherson's character, he was a weird character because, he was very...
I think they were trying to set up the possibility he might be the slasher.
Well, he was a really weird character because he is completely vapid.
Yes.
Because he is simultaneously in love with Ione, although that turns out to be Sloane in Ione's body.
Which is Ione's mum.
Yeah, and Riley.
Yeah.
And doesn't see that, and that's the one confusing thing in the film for me, because 1 minute he's literally all over Ione, like making out with her, then he's hanging out outside Riley's house and going on a slow skateboard ride with her. And I thought the intention there, my interpretation there was it's actually, again, it's pointing to the vapidness of teenagers, where, you know, okay, yeah, he probably is like, oh yeah, me and Ione, like, we love each other, blah, blah, blah. But actually, he's just as interested in Riley, because he's a fucking horny teenage boy.
Yeah.
Like, a girl's a girl sort of thing.
Any hole's a goal.
Oh, don't say it that way. Let's talk about Sanders.
Yes.
Sanders S. Sanford, I think is his name.
Yes.
Or Sanders S. Sanderson.
Is that the villain?
Yeah, the geek boy who was just as Picard.
Yeah. I was like, go on Star Trek. And just to show my geek knowledge here, there was a bit where someone gets murdered in that guy's bedroom. Mm-hmm. And when the blood spatters, it shows about 3 different shots. One of them is it spraying on the side. It's a close-up on a Star Trek Enterprise-style figure, right?
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that's the NX-01 from Star Trek Enterprise, not from any of the other, like specifically Enterprise from the early to mid-2000s. And I was like, and all it had was what we call the Bussard collectors, which is
I thought they were the warp drives.
So the warp nacelles have the Bussard collectors on the front. And the reason I knew, which is the bit that collects space dust that generates energy for the ship, it's all very complicated in science. I love Star Trek. I read too much into it. You're exactly the same with Doctor Who shit.
Yeah, but Doctor Who just makes up words. I mean,
Bussard collector, my friend.
Sorry, what I meant to say is when Doctor Who makes up words, it does it in a way where even if you've never seen Doctor Who, you can guess what the thing does.
Wibbly wobbly timey wimey
i.e.
stuff.
chameleon circuit.
You can't see it. You can't see the circuit.
Well, that's what makes the TARDIS hide as a phone box.
Right.
But that makes sense, doesn't it?
But
something that makes it blend in.
Would that not also mean if it's got a chameleon circuit, it would give you basically whatever you give back? Because it's going to have a karma connected to that, isn't it? Karma.
Stop it!
Chameleon.
Stop it!
Look, if we're referencing...
Bad Rory!
If we're referencing our retro music...
From now on, when we record this show, I'm going to have a spray bottle of water. And like when a cat misbehaves, I'm just going to be like, bad Rory. bad, Rory.
I need to make a compilation of all the
So-
times I've upset you with puns.
So anyway, because this is the thing with this film, is we've referred to it as a slasher parody a few times, because that is the setup.
Yeah.
And then the film just gets bored of being that.
Yeah.
Halfway through, it just decides, we're done with this.
I'm not even sure it's halfway through. It just kind of every now and then it goes, oh yeah, there was a slasher here, wasn't he? Here he is again. All right, we're done with that again.
Now we're a John Hughes style teen comedy. The ending of the film is literally lifted near enough from The Breakfast Club.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because while it's nostalgia heavy in terms of it plays a load of like Backstreet Boys and things like that, 90s music, it's also very nostalgic cinematically, or at least thematically from different cinema films. As you say, the ending is from Breakfast Club. You've got Freaky Fridays with the switch of the mum and the daughter.
You've got the bit where the lecturer's lecturing them, and if you pay attention...
he's talking about Back to the Future. He's talking about the flux capacitor.
8.1 gigawatts or whatever it is.
He's talking about what you need for the flux capacitor on Back to the Future. There's lots of stuff like that happening throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's several we missed.
Oh, definitely, because they talk. It's a very fast film, and there's several scenes. The one that pops to mind is the bowling alley scene, where, again, showing the vapidness of the teen, and this has been referred to as a commentary on the Twitter generation.
Yeah.
By one critic, and I kind of see what they mean. I don't know if you noticed in the bowling alley scene,
The boys and the girls having two different discussions.
they're having two completely different conversations,
But they sort of cross over and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, they're just ignoring each other, but they're still acting as if they've had a response. If that's not Twitter, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
A bunch of people basically talking to themselves.
Yeah, shouting over each other.
And this has got 80s nostalgia as well, because Clapton is obsessed with Patrick Swayze, who obviously was around in the 90s as well, but all the
Dirty
big movies...
Dancing is what he refers
Roadhouse, Dirty Dancing...
Those are all 80s films.
I think Ghost maybe gets mentioned, which I think is 1990, I think, Ghost
it's
is.
just on the cusp, isn't it?
But yeah, you get a weird bit where he's channeling, near the end is a bit where he fights Sanders and he's channeling the power of Patrick Swayze.
Yes.
And Sanders is channeling fucking Steven Seagal.
That was it, yeah. Your fighting is really obnoxious.
Yeah, Steven
he's playing-
Seagal is not the one you want to be channel like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee. This is a film in which there's not a single character in this who isn't cracking constant pop culture references.
Yeah.
Even the cops who come to her house.
Oh, they're constantly referring to films that
Yeah,
they
when
think
he-
she's parodying.
Yeah, and copying, because they think she's copying Scream, and she's like, I'm not Neve Campbell. They call her Nev Campbell, and that always annoys me when people call her Nev
Neve.
Campbell. At least I think it's pronounced Neve, but I don't know, I've never heard Neve Campbell say it.
So it might
What
be Nev.
if it is pronounced Nev Campbell, and this whole time I've been saying it wrong?
And you've been getting angry at people saying it right.
I know. Anyway, and he literally just turns around at one point and he's like, Iron Man, now that's a movie. And she's like, Iron Man was a completely different set of circumstances.
But then later on they do a callback to that with CGI when she's in the time traveling bear.
And it's like Iron Man's heads up display, isn't it?
Yeah, but I did say time traveling bear for anyone who hasn't seen this film and is listening and going, what the fuck?
Magnetic time traveling bear
Forget the
from
magnetism.
the planet Starclaw.
Yes, that has that she blows towards the... Well, it looks like she's blowing it, but she's actually putting on it an emergency activation switch.
So one of my favourite
That's
shots
underneath
in
the
this
bear.
film, one of my favourite shots is when they're actually in detention and they're all in a circle.
Yes.
And the camera, Sanders is clearly next to Riley.
Yeah.
And the camera pushes, without cutting, the
pushes
camera
in.
pushes in on Riley, pulls back out, and now there's a new guy sitting next to it. It's Elliot Fink.
Yeah, and the thing is, Elliot Fink is not in the scene almost at all up to this point, but there's a couple of shots where you get a brief glimpse of him, and suddenly she looks and it's Sanders again.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's very weird and very well done as to how they hide that transition.
Yeah.
And then this shot is, as you say, seems to be, if it's not actually one unbroken take, where they literally swap him out.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everyone can see him. And they're like, who the hell are you? Have you been here the whole time?
He's had detention every day for 19 years.
Yeah, that was it,
And
yeah.
you're like, dude, you should have left school. Like, how
Also-
can they still be keeping you in detention?
He also doesn't look nearly 40.
No.
So they never explain why. He looks about their age and he's still in detention after 20 years.
And you get and it turns out he's the one who took the photo of the girl blowing the bear.
Yeah.
Can we talk for a bit?
And that's why he got detention.
Yeah.
He got detention because they thought he was
Because
taking porn from photoing her blowing the bear.
Which is why the film doesn't actually work in a logic sense, or at least not in traditional time travel, because there are great grandfather paradoxes going on here, because she only goes back in time because he solves the equation.
Yeah.
But her going back in time so he can take a photo of her so he can get detention.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be in detention if she didn't go back in time.
Yeah.
But she can only go back in time because he was in detention and spent all that time solving time travel.
Can I say something here?
This is wibbly wobbly timey wimey.
It is very, because it's running on its own logic that doesn't actually work. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Because when they go into the future,
What?
everyone's alive again, except for two of them by random chance.
Are you telling me that putting a TV on your hand doesn't cure all illnesses?
Well, certainly. But to be fair, I've never been half fly, so I don't know.
Maybe this is how we solve the NHS crisis. We just get a bunch of old CRTs. Maybe that's why we don't have this miracle technology anymore. Everyone's got flat screens now.
That's it. Flat screens are ruining
Flat screens
the
are
NHS.
useless.
Exactly. They are.
So should I go to work with a CRT on Monday?
I'm here to save lives.
Just stick it on an old lady's leg.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry, Mrs. Smith, your broken ankle will be cured in no time. And you can watch Fraser while you're at it.
Oh, it looks the way I remember.
Oh, I always liked that Nile.
But here's the thing, like, anyone listening into us right now who hasn't seen the film, doesn't know what we're talking about, this film sounds shit. Because we've just talked about...
Some people will be sitting there going, this sounds incredible.
No, but I mean, in terms of its logic, because let's be honest, the time travel doesn't really work. The reasoning for the time travel is even more horseshit. Someone appears in the third act from fucking nowhere and solves an equation that couldn't possibly work because of the way the time travel exists. But he's part of the time travel equation.
Mother-daughter body swap 15 minutes from the end.
You've got a guy who's the fly, but isn't the fly. He just vomits up sticky stuff and gets stuck to stuff every now and then. And he's a pro football player.
And don't forget, his semen glows in the dark. We get that.
Yeah, we get told that. Thankfully, we don't see it. But yeah,
and when he orgasms, the fly wings come out.
Oh yeah, we do see that. There's a lot of stuff where you just be like, this sounds like stupid shit madness. And it kind of is.
Yeah.
But it's the packaging and the fact that it's very obvious. I don't know how they've done it, but it's very obvious from the direction and the way it's shot and framed that the director knows that this doesn't work, but doesn't care. Let's have fun. Come along for the ride.
This is what I like to call...
It's not trying to be... you know what I would say is compare it to a more recent version of a similar idea, maybe Midsummer. I know you haven't seen that, and we've discussed this before, that Midsummer is a bit shit. I don't like it. Though I do find it funny, and I think you would enjoy it somewhat, though you would have the same issues as I do. The difference between this and Midsummer, where this narrative doesn't really work, and Midsummer's narrative doesn't really work because of inconsistencies in character behaviour. The difference is there are no inconsistencies in the character behaviour in this film. The film is just zany and stupid. Yeah. But the film knows it. Yeah. Whereas Midsummer, the main narrative is actually still quite a good horror concept and works factually. It's that the characters don't work within that framework because they have to be written stupid to make it work. Yeah. And the thing is that's a very different issue. And also, the reason Midsummer does that is because it's trying to tell you it's smarter than it is. Yeah. Whereas this doesn't pretend to... It's got all of this stuff about time travel and solving the mathematical equation of multidimensional travel through time with electronic bears and spaceships. But because it's so insane, it's sitting there going, we're just talking shit. Like, just get on with it. Just enjoy the ride.
This is what I like to refer to as... It's a once-in-a-lifetime lightning in a bottle film.
Yes.
It's a film that shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah. Dodgeball was like this.
It's a film that even Dodgeball, I would say, isn't like this.
Really?
I like Dodgeball, but what I mean is you could not replicate this movie by trying. You couldn't boil this down to a formula. This is why films like this don't exist more.
Yes.
This is the opposite of an MCU movie.
Yeah, it's not following a formula.
Yeah, there's no blueprint, and you couldn't make one. Because, don't get me wrong, it is skill, but a lot of this, the reason this works, is luck. They got the exact right cast,
Yep.
the right gags, the right look, the right director, and it all just works. Another film that's like this for me is A Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street 4, which I will show you at some point, should not work. They started filming it. Its release date was set less than a year after Elm Street 3. Said less than a year to make it and edit it. It is a director who was making his first ever English language film, he was couch surfing and could barely speak any English. There was no script. The film is ridiculous. A woman gets turned into a cockroach by Freddy. He eats meatballs with people's faces on them out of a giant pizza.
Right.
And he has a kung fu fight with a guy. But it's amazing.
Right.
It just works somehow. It shouldn't.
You know what?
But it does.
I would like to... I'd actually be this is one of those directors that I would love to have a conversation with.
Oh, 100%.
Because, like, yes, there's luck. There's luck in every film. But I actually, unlike several films, like we mentioned, like Dodgeball had a certain amount of luck to it, I think, as well. This didn't feel as much like luck. There seemed to be, for me, it felt like there was, because of the way they filmed it, a huge amount of consideration, and there must have been fucking storyboards galore to figure out how to do, like, because you can't accidentally do some of these scene transitions.
Oh God, no! Like the one we talked about in the Detention, where they push forward and push back.
That can't be done accidentally and go, oh, but just happens in post, we can blend these shots together. That's not how that works. No. You can't do that when they suddenly swap in the guy in the what's his name?
Elliot Fink.
Yeah, Elliot Fink. You can't accidentally pop that in. You can't accidentally get the opening credits the way that they were made.
The really good bit where there's the janitor in the middle and the bully character, the flyboy, he walks down one side and Josh Hutcherson ducks under the other. Yeah. So they don't see each other.
Yeah.
That's timing. Yeah. Like, that takes planning.
Yeah. And all of this stuff says to me that while there may have been an element of luck to it for sure, as every film does, this film must work because of something the director chose. Because it's so meticulously planned. Easy Rider is a film that I think works by luck, where it works. Dodgeball works because they had luck with the cast.
Yeah.
Literally the cast makes Dodgeball work.
Yeah.
But this film is, if you remove the cast... You could probably get a cast that would still work, though I love the cast they've got. I'm not saying that they should replace the cast. If you got rid of the 90s nostalgic music, it would still work as a movie, though again, that's part of its style, which would lose something in that. If you were to remove any element, you would lose something, but you wouldn't lose what makes the film work in terms of its kinetic pace. Yeah. And the way that it scene transitions and keeps the flow going.
I really like the scene. One of the scenes that is a parody of Scream.
Yeah.
Is obviously Scream's got that bit where they're all being like, well, you could be the killer, you could be the killer. And you get the good bit with Jamie Kennedy in the video store where he's like, everybody's a suspect. You get a similar scene here, but
this whole they're not the killer.
But they're all justified why they're not the killer in that they're all stupid reasons. Yeah. So one of them, it's like, you don't have the upper body strength to swing an axe.
Yep.
And the best one is the black guy whose name I unfortunately forget. Who's like,
he's not really named, I don't think.
They do say his name once. It's something like T-Dog or something like that. No.
He's the most boring guy in the world.
But he literally just goes because they're all about how they don't really know him and he doesn't stand out. And they're like, you got psycho written all over you, and he goes, guys, I'm not psycho, I'm just boring. Another line I really like is from near the beginning, is when the bully is about to beat Josh Hutcherson up, and he goes, if your face hurts my fist, I will hit you again harder.
There are some good lines in this film.
Always ready for football.
Yeah, that weird coach went to 11 all the time. And that's a directorial choice, I think.
And an acting choice, because it's in the script, isn't it? Because he's got that bit just before he does Always Ready for Football.
Yeah.
There's the bit where he's going on about, the problem with kids today, they don't know how to channel aggression.
Yeah.
Football, that's the key.
Yeah. You ready for football, coach? Always ready for football! Bang!
We used to do that at uni all the time.
But the thing, this film is full of great lines, things like that. And again, Midsummer had funny bits, which I'm sure were intended to be funny because it's ridiculous at points. And there were some that were genuine jokes. But I don't think it matched them up in the way that this film does.
No.
This film is balls to the wall ridiculous. It is kitsch. It is not for everyone. But I honestly...
If I showed this to my dad, I think my dad would kill himself.
I don't think your dad would understand half of what's going on. To be honest, I wouldn't blame him. The thing is if I actually... This is kind of a rare one as well, in which it's not, as you say, it's not a film that people generally tend to know about. A general movie-going audience, I don't know if it would suit them so much. It would be a person-to-person basis. Do they like anything that's a bit zany? Because if they don't, you're batting up the wrong tree. Yeah. I think that's the people that came into your class and went, I don't understand, it was garbage. You need to be able to go, you know what, this is hilarious and I want to run with this stupidity. But filmmakers, this is kind of a rare one in that kitsch camp. Because it's so well directed and it's so, like, those scene transitions and the way that it does certain scenes and the way it frames itself, the camera is always very meticulously framed.
Yeah.
That's something filmmakers should learn, and that's something that this person does extraordinarily well throughout this film, and actually makes me want to watch the rest of their catalogue.
Yeah,
because
I'll give Talk a go.
Yeah, because
plus, did you hear them poke fun at themselves?
Yeah.
In the classroom scene right near the beginning, just before the smoke alarm goes off, and the teacher's like, "Well, I'm wet."
Yeah.
The Asian character, the one who is building the time travel into the bear.
Yep.
He turns around and someone says something about talk, as in the concept of talk, and he goes, "What, that terrible movie?"
But I'd be interested to see that, and basically anything else that this director
honestly,
does,
I'd watch Bodied.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like the sort of film I'd be interested in. A comedy rap battle thing.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like my sort of jam either. But
I want to see what this guy does.
Yeah, because honestly, like, the direction is solid.
Yeah,
really solid.
I'd like to see which music videos he's done as well. Actually,
see, I think that's something maybe that's worked in his favour. Is that because he's used to doing... I'm guessing if he's done a lot of music videos, he's done a lot of different styles for different types of artists. Yeah. With this, that's where he's managed to sort of somehow weave a somehow compelling narrative of these different disparate genres, but they feel like they're consistent.
Yeah.
Somehow, like
somehow the film coalesces into a whole.
Yeah, where it shouldn't. It really fucking shouldn't.
No, the plot is all over the place.
Yeah,
it, like you said, it
changes genre on the fly.
Yeah, the plot is happening, and then it'll just go, "Oh, let's go tell this fly story for 10 minutes."
Yeah.
Why?
By the way, there's sci-fi
now.
By the way, there's sci-fi now. It'll just throw that in the time travel.
Yeah. This hits nearly every genre.
Oh, there's fantasy
is.
now. She's replaced herself in her mum's body.
Has there ever been, as well? Has there ever been a film that's got a film within a film within a film within a film within a film?
I mean, it's a pretty Inception level amount of films within films.
Yeah, and each one getting worse and worse quality, which is the best
like going back in time, isn't it? Because it goes, they get sort of...
And lower and lower budget as well, until it ends at the porn parody version with Ron Jeremy.
Yeah, literally in this film for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, with those awful stick-on nipples. Did you see him? And he's like sticking his tongue out going, ah. Bloody hell. Yeah, the whole time travel thing that makes you spin your head, because she ends up giving birth to her own mum, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And then you get the bit where she's like, don't you drink that, young lady. You go away, young lady.
Yeah.
You know how cool people call guacamole guac? I invented that.
So, okay.
I wasn't quite clear. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't... You don't need to know why. The function is more important than the reason. Why is the bomb powerful enough to destroy the world?
They never explain it.
No, because it's because you
first
see in the original timeline,
when it first goes off, it only burns a bit of his face.
Yeah, and then Sanders goes back and adds something to it.
Well, no, he convinces him to do it right.
Yeah.
clearly the
So
bomb was
what do-
always able to blow up
Yeah.
the world. It just didn't do
So
it.
what does Sanders know
No, he just convinces the guy
to do it right? Yeah.
But I don't know how the guy figured out how to make the bomb that could destroy the world. Yeah, that's your point.
Yeah.
Like, because the
it's
original
full
bomb...
of... Because you see it go off...
Yeah.
And obviously the effects aren't good. We've already said this
but
bit.
the whole building's on fire and the world is burning.
But it doesn't just all go. It doesn't go off like the mansion blows up at the end of Resident Evil 1, where it literally all just disintegrates. One room blows up, and then fire just spreads everywhere, and then the next thing you know, the entire world is on fire.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? And then Sanders, like, all his skin starts to flake off, and he's like, and then they go back in time again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange.
I've meant to do this for years, and I don't know why I've left it till now. I want to get, like, Bent and Dave and that lot round here and watch this film.
Hell yeah.
I might do that for my next birthday.
Okay.
Rather than go out, just be sad, stay in and watch Detention.
Yeah, do film night.
Well, my last birthday, we had drinks, pizza, and watched Army of Darkness.
Nice.
I introduced Benton to Army of Darkness, and he ended up really liking it. I've introduced Benton to a few films he's ended up liking. He liked Army of Darkness, and he liked Planet Terror a lot.
Nice.
So I might go 3 for 3 with Detention.
Yeah. Yeah, Detention's very oddball, though, but we'll see.
Do you reckon I can sneak Always Ready for Football into the Haunted Live show?
You're always ready for football. Yes.
Hey, Preston, you ready for garlic sausage? Always ready for garlic sausage.
Do it, my friend. Okay, so your initial reasons for viewing this was because it was odd, and you wanted to show it to me, I suppose.
Yeah, to be fair, I've kind of cheated the system with this one, because I had no doubt in my mind, really, that I would have been surprised and sad if I'd have watched this and been like, oh, my opinion's changed.
Yeah.
This is actually kind of stupid.
But then
no, my opinion hasn't changed. I love this. This is brilliant.
So then the question is I suppose, because it's not a well-known film at all, you've not changed your opinion of it. You still love it. Who would you recommend it for?
It's hard. It's hard to tell,
That's
isn't it?
the difficult bit.
Because this thing, you can't recommend it based on genre.
Nope.
Because it's a billion genres. It really is, and this is why it's so hard. It's for people who have got that switch in their brain where they can go, okay, I know this is a sort of film that's just gonna keep adding elements all the way to the end.
Yep.
And I'm on board with that.
Yep.
You need to be the sort of person who, when you get halfway through a film and it suddenly diverts to time-traveling bear from Planet Starclaw, you just go, cool.
Yep. Here we go.
As opposed to what a lot of people I know would do, which is, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. And I think that's your half and half, where you had half the people in your class say they loved it and half hated it.
I guess the interesting question would be, because it is such a heavily 90s nostalgic film, do you think anyone who didn't live through the 90s would get it? Now, to be fair...
They'd understand it as much as we do, I think. But whether it... Because, yeah, the nostalgia does help.
And to be fair, because I don't get all the nostalgia, because I wasn't born until 1990.
Right.
So really, 91 to sort of 95, 96...
You don't remember. See, I remember most of the 90s, because by the time 1990 hit, I was 4.
Yeah.
So, that's early memories all the way through to, my mid-teens.
Yeah. See, I guess for me, I'm more nostalgic about the 2000s, I guess.
Yes, whereas I'm not as much, because I was in my 20s during the 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is an oddity of cinema.
Because you'd introduce it to someone now, and right at the beginning, like, say we got a Gen Zer, say we got someone who's like 18 now, which you realise means they wouldn't have been born until
2005.
I refuse to believe there are people who were born in 2005.
Oh,
people
mate.
after 1999.
I was in uni in 2005.
After 1999, people stopped having children. Okay,
Yeah.
we entered the Children of Men universe, and we're all going to slowly die out.
I was
anyway.
19 in 2005.
Anyway, imagine showing this to an 18-year-old now, and that very opening joke: beauty, intelligence, talent, charisma, hoobastank.
Yep.
They're going to sit there going, "What the fuck is hoobastank?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Is that some weird 90s slang you all had? No, it's a band."
Yeah. But okay, so I really enjoyed this film.
It is the sort of film where I will try and show to, for the rest of my life, I will try and show this film to as many people as I can, knowing full well that the majority probably won't get it, won't
Did you
like
think I'd
it.
like it?
I honestly couldn't tell. I couldn't tell.
What made you think I wouldn't like it?
Because I find your taste can be odd in that I generally associate you with silly things. And I thought you'd like silly.
Yeah.
But then there's some things that are silly that you take really seriously, and I'll be like, oh.
Like what?
Like Need for Speed, for example.
Oh, mate, that's emotional, that's why. It hits me on an emotional
Fair
level.
enough.
It's
Fair
weird.
enough.
I don't know why either.
I don't know. I think what it was I didn't know if you'd be able to get on board with the fact, because obviously you're a fellow writer and director, I didn't know if you would get on board with the fact that this film has no respect for narrative storytelling.
No.
It is literally just like,
Fuck you, I'll do
fuck
what I want.
structure.
But I think it does have a structure. I think that's the trick. I think it doesn't follow a generic 3-act structure very well, which suggests... But the fact that it works suggests that it, either by accident or I think by planning, it's hitting another structure. It's throwing out the 3-act structure. It may be a 5-act structure. Right. That might be why it looks a bit odd. There's even the 3-hour-long Marvel movies nowadays, like the big MCU, the stuff that we're used to nowadays, not me, but most people, because I haven't watched most of the MCU, but generally they all follow 3 acts. This definitely doesn't. But it doesn't feel like it's aimless.
Yeah.
Normally, if it's someone just going, fuck it, I'll do what I want, it's aimless. And I would say that about Eraserhead.
Yeah.
It felt aimless. This doesn't feel aimless. It's always driving forwards.
Yeah.
And that suggests to me that there is a certain structure it's hitting. I just haven't figured out what that structure is yet. Because, again, with the cinematography and everything else, I can't say that they were lazy, because it's not. It's very well considered. So I refuse to believe that the structure is lazy or ill-considered. I think there's something going on that I need to reanalyze in this film. And you know me, I love being able to look at films, analyze them, reanalyze them. Whether they're good or bad films, I will always have an extra special bit of love for a film if I can look at it, evaluate it, and reevaluate it. Even garbage like Super Mario Brothers, the movie from '93, I love that film because it gives me the ability to evaluate and reevaluate.
Yeah.
Whether or not the film itself is cinematic gold, it is not. It gives me that extra edge, and I love that. This film, I think, is far more successful than Super Mario Brothers at doing what it does. But it's also, and I think that it's aided by the fact that it seems to be purely director's vision without studio interference. On top of that, it still gives me that ability to think and to reevaluate. And I don't know what this structure is yet, but I want to know it because it seems fun. So that's something I would love to get a copy of it so I could research it and watch it and try and figure out its plot pacing. I love this film. I'm very glad you've shown me a couple of films before and I've been like, you showed me 2001 Maniacs, I wasn't into it. It was a generic slasher outside of...
Yeah.
I understand what you like.
Outside of the comedy, yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot more generic horror.
Yeah.
This was not a generic horror.
No.
This was a lot more interesting as well. There wasn't really anything for me to sink my teeth into with 2001 Maniacs.
Yeah.
There wasn't any psychological depth to it.
No.
There wasn't anything zany where I'd be like, what's the structure? How do they put this together? This had a lot of that.
Yeah.
It was a lot slicker. That I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
And it's kitsch. You know me, I love kitsch shit.
I showed you They Live.
They Live was fucking awesome.
See,
Yes.
I got the good stuff.
You do it. Don't say it like that.
Stuff.
I got the good stuff.
You ain't got
baby.
any good stuff.
I have got good stuff.
You ain't introduced me to anything I've loved yet.
That's your fault. You're hard to please.
Yeah, well, that means I'm
But
worth
you watch
it.
because you watch
Means
horror
I'm
garbage.
worth it, though.
Huh?
Means I'm worth it, though.
Hang on, Fatal Frame.
That don't count.
Yes, it does.
No, I'll tell you why that doesn't
Fuck
count.
off, you can't just go in and
No,
doesn't
I'll
count.
tell you why that doesn't count, because that's not a film that was like something you were passionate about. That's something we discovered together through VGMP. Not like a film that you've known for a long time that
brought
you
it
were
to
desperate
you.
to introduce to me.
So you didn't like Fifth Element?
No, I hated Fifth Element.
Galaxy Quest is great.
You haven't shown me that yet.
I did show you Galaxy Quest.
No, you didn't. You showed me a couple scenes from it, but we didn't watch the actual film.
I thought we watched the whole film.
No.
I swear we watched Galaxy Quest.
I swear we didn't. You showed me a clip where they've clearly dubbed Sigourney Weaver.
That doesn't sound right, but okay, fair enough.
I promise you I've never seen it.
Tony Shalhoub?
I promise you I've not seen it. Unless you put it on and then drugged me, so
Okay.
I missed it all.
I think you'll like Moon when you get to
Moon I want to see.
I think you'll like Moon.
But yeah, no, so I think that's probably... It probably isn't all there is to say about Detention, but unless we want this episode to go for 5 hours,
Yeah.
we should probably wrap it up there.
I mean, I
I'm
think
a
we
big
could
fan.
explain the entire story back to front and we'd still be like, so we haven't really explained everything in this film somehow.
I'm a big fan of the use of mbop in the film.
Yes.
I always have it stuck in my head after
Yes,
this
and
film.
it's, to be honest, it's better than Hansen's version.
Mbop.
Bear in mind, that was the first album I ever owned.
Yes, it was. It's all songs about how much they love their granny.
I bought it last year. No, not really.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, all I can say is if you have not seen Detention, directed by Joseph Kahn from 2011, give it a chance. The problem is it's very hard to find now. It's not on any streaming sites as far as I'm aware.
Right.
It might possibly be on Amazon Prime. It definitely is not on Netflix or Disney Plus. I know that. I honestly think it's worth it. I adore this movie. It's insane. Thank you so much for tuning in to Second Take Cinema and joining us on this deep dive into Detention. You can catch our other show, the Video Game Movie Podcast, aka VGMP, on all good podcasting apps. That's where Rory and I talk about video game movies exclusively. And you can also catch my audio drama, Haunted the Audio Drama, available also on Spotify, Stitcher, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, etc., etc. That is a show that I run with Benton Hodges, and it's a audio drama show, so it's a full cast, and it's sort of an X-Files meets Doctor Who adventure horror series with a long-running storyline interspersed with standalone Monster of the Week episodes, and we would absolutely love if you would have a listen to that. Until next time then, I think it's safe to say that is a wrap on Detention.